Welcome everyone to the June 2022 Boise ITSM Talks meeting. I am Jeff Jensen. I'm the president of Boise ITSM and your facilitator for our meeting again today. I want to say thank you to all of you for making the time to be here today and to attend what I know will be a fantastic meeting. I'm really happy that all of you can be here. Starting to see several more folks making it in. I'll say welcome to them as they make it in. So, of course, thanks for being here to attend our meeting. Very special thank you to Roy Atkinson. I'll introduce Roy here in just a minute. Appreciate him being here and taking the time to present to all of us today and to attend Boise ITSM. And I know we have some first timers who are here. And as we get finished with Roy's presentation, as we're doing some Q&A, if folks want to introduce themselves, especially for those of you that are here for the first time, we'll try and make some time to do that as well. Very quickly, I always like to kick off our meeting with our vision statement, which is really here to be here as a resource for all of you to deliver information that's actionable and that you can take away from this meeting and be able to implement into your organization. And I always appreciate the feedback that I hear from people that are able to do that. Real quick, I'm hearing some background noise. If folks can mute, I would appreciate that. Make sure you're on mute. Thank you. And definitely encourage attendee participation in this meeting. Again, we'll reserve some time at the end for Q&A, and this meeting's recorded as well. So even if you aren't able to stick around till the end and be part of the Q&A, we'll definitely post the recording of this and have some opportunities to have some further interaction. We're here to inspire all of you to become better IT leaders and to fill the ITSM voids that we still see in some of our organizations and in some of our communities. And very important to look at what we can do to continue to make an impact and make a difference in our organizations through collaborating, through sharing, through learning. And I'm really just super pleased with the meetings that we've had so far in 2022 as a part of the Boise ITSM group. And we've expanded our audience. We have even more of a virtual community continuing to grow and opportunity for all of us to go out and make a difference. Today's presentation, we have Roy Atkinson, who is the Chief Executive Officer from Clifton Butterfield, LLC. His presentation is the case for employee experience and IT experience management driven continual improvement. And I'm going to do a quick introduction here for Roy, and then we will let him kick things off. So really excited to have Roy here. Roy is, as I mentioned, the CEO of Clifton Butterfield, LLC, which is a business advisory practice. It's one of the most recognized, Roy is one of the most recognized thought leaders in IT, service management, and customer experience. He is a fellow of the Institute for Digital Transformation, which we'll talk about here a little bit more at the end of the meeting in our announcements, as well as he is a member of the HDI Strategic Advisory Board. He's been described on CIO Insight as a model for the future digital leader, and by Nextiva as one of the top 50 customer service experts of the decade 2010 to 2020. Where he's also been named one of HDI's top 25 thought leaders for 2022. And I think he's been in that role and had that recognition for a lot of years. He holds a master's certificate in advanced management strategy from Tulane University's Freeman School of Business and holds 2 certifications in experience management. So please welcome Roy. Roy, very happy to have you here. I'll go ahead and stop my sharing and give you control of the meeting. Oh, you're on mute, Roy.
It's dangerous giving me control of anything, Jeff. You have to be aware of that fact. So, but now since I have control, woohoo! Nice to be here. Nice to see you all here. And we're going to talk about a lot of different things today. But ultimately, it's about employee experience and specifically what's being called ITXM, IT Experience Management, and how that plays into your continual improvement programs. It's a thing of beauty, actually. You will enjoy that. And Jeff has done a very nice job of introducing what we do at Clifton Butterfield, so I won't go into that, but we'll move right along here. I want to start with the takeaways, actually. Which is the way I've been doing presentations lately. Start with the takeaways, and then we come back to them at the end and make sure we've hit everything that I said we were going to hit. So first of all, we're going to have a clear definition of what employee experience means. One of the problems that we have in the world right now is that we come up with these terms or these ideas, and some of them become buzzwords and everybody's talking about them, but nobody knows what they mean, or everybody has their own definition, and that really clouds the field. One of the great things about ITIL that I think everybody can agree on is that it established a common vocabulary and made it a lot easier for IT professionals to communicate with each other about specific things such as what's an incident, what's a problem, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about how an iterative feedback-driven approach can really help you succeed in your improvement efforts. We don't want to do continual improvement. We want to keep making progress. We want to get things going and can maintain momentum and all of that. And how do we do that? And one of the ways we can do it is with this employee experience effort. And then how do you measure that? How do you know you're succeeding? And how does that play into your overall plans? So here's the definition of employee experience that I really like. It is from TechTarget. And TechTarget, as you know, is a source for all kinds of information about technology and various happenings in the field of technology. And this is their definition. It's a worker's perceptions about his or her journey through all the touch points with a particular company from, let's say, time of recruiting to the time of exit, right? So it's all of that, similar to the way customer experience is. All the experiences that you have with a particular brand or organization, from the time you first see the brand to the time you stop doing business with them, whatever that may be. It's a very similar concept, and it is important to understand that it's perceptions that really plays into what we're talking about today. And the technology is important, but the most important thing is to get this right and to understand why we're doing this. Why would you want to know? Why do you care about what employees perceive? And here's one of the reasons. This is from Annette France. Annette is very highly respected in the field of customer experience. And somebody, when Annette announced her book, said, well, aren't you going to say anything about employees? Because that's important. And this is on page 2. She says, without employees, there's no customer experience. So you have to take care of them, and employee experience drives the customer experience. And she just says it's been proven, and it has over and over again. It is clear that there's a very high relationship between the experience of employees and the experience of customers. Yeah, everybody's been saying for years and years and years, happy employees make happy customers. It's been shown through exhaustive research again and again and again that that is in fact the case. And I'm going to add a thought here. When Jan Carlson took over at Scandinavian Airline Systems, they were the worst airline in the world. They were rated very badly in customer service. They were losing money in boatloads. Jan Carlson came in and took over, and in a period of less than 3 years, he made them the most highly rated airline in customer service and one of the most profitable. And his saying was, if you're not serving the customer, your job is to be serving someone who is. So that's how all the employees feed into the whole idea of delivering value to the customer. Very important. So, of course, you want to build a case for doing this employee experience and IT experience management journey. At Barclay Ray, some of you will know Barclay right off the bat. If you don't, you should. He's absolutely brilliant, and he's Scottish. What more could you want? When building your case for experience management, you need to clarify the why and how value will be defined and managed. So again, definitions are really important. And we're going to talk about some of that today, especially in terms of measuring what you're getting out of this. which is exceedingly important. If you know some of the work that I've done over the years, a lot of it has revolved around metrics and how important they are and how the right metrics are super important. So let's talk about that. This little outline comes from the Association for Project Management. So how do you build a case for what you want to do? Make a strategic case for change. What's the overarching view of why you want to do this? Then, of course, the second question everybody's going to ask is, how much is it going to cost me, right? That's the question executives are always going to ask. What's it going to cost me? What's the return? And then think about if you're going to be buying any new technologies, maybe you will, maybe you won't. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, but it's not absolutely necessary for this approach. We'll have to talk about sourcing and procurement for that and how affordable it is. But then the really important stuff is, how do you manage this? What are the roles and governance involved? So there's the outline of your case. Easy peasy, right? Do it in a heartbeat. Good luck. So let's start with some of those big strategic reasons. Digital transformation. And what that means is it's shifting the organization to new ways of working and new kinds of work using digital technologies as the enablers. It's not technology first, it is changing the way we work and changing the things we work on, and then including that new technology underneath to make sure that we're working on it in ways that matter and enabling the best outcomes. So the consequences of big changes like this can be very disruptive. An employee at a large insurance company put it best, and this was actually at a local chapter meeting years ago, at HCI chapter meeting. And she said, we made this update across the enterprise. And she said the first thing that happened was somebody called up the service desk and said, yesterday, I knew how to do my job. Today, I don't. So that can be extremely disruptive when there are changes of a major character involved in anything. And that has a big impact on employee experience. It can be positive or it can be negative, depending on what's driving that change and where you got the information to make that particular change. That's really key to what we're talking about today. Monitoring employee experience can help you by assessing the appetite for change and the ability to tolerate change as the organization continues to transform. It's bigger than the what's in it for me. It's how is this going to impact me? Is it going to improve the way I'm working, or is it going to make it harder for me to work? A lot of it is about effort. And by listening to employee feedback, you can mitigate the risk of changes. If you're focused only within your own silos, whether that's IT or somewhere else in the organization, we'll propose and make changes based only on what we think is the correct next step. So you have a limited view of what your next step in your improvement efforts is going to be. But if you listen to those who are doing the work, you very likely get specific information about what's getting in the way of productivity and what we should be thinking about improving next. So you'll have a better clue as to how to prioritize things. And that's really important in any improvement effort. And we have to watch out for naysayers here as you're presenting this case to people in your organization. If you do, there'll be some who will trot out this quote that will say, Henry Ford said, if I'd asked customers what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Only thing is, Henry Ford never said that. Somebody made that up and attributed it to Henry Ford. Now, it is one way to look at how customers view the world, but it's a false quote. If you ask good questions and listen to what people have to say, you'll be absolutely amazed at how you can be guided by feedback. Vala Afshar, who I know a little bit, and he's very popular on Twitter. He's a mucky muck with Salesforce. Vala always says, feedback is a gift. Unwrap it and share it with your team. And we're going to talk more about that sharing and what an important component that is of this entire approach. So if you're being guided to change and what needs to change, what's getting in the way of productivity, you're putting your money where it will do the most good. If you're defining doing the most good as increasing productivity, which I think most of us would say, that's certainly a big good. Eliminating barriers to progress, eliminating pain points, and allowing people to get on with their work. And if you look at the purpose of IT to begin with, isn't it to provide the technology and services that enable work to happen? That's the view I've always had. So if you're listening and acting on employee feedback, and if you are eliminating those pain points and making the work easier, you're going to have a positive effect on employee experience. Make sense? Does to me. Make it less difficult for people to do work. And here's some of the reasons why this approach makes sense, especially now. We're certainly all familiar with the big shift to remote and hybrid work that happened when the pandemic hit. Hybrid work is here to stay, regardless of what some senior management people would have you believe or mandate of their organizations. People are definitely interested in having the ability to work where they want and where it makes sense for them to be. And the productivity has actually increased in most organizations where it's been measured. If people are working at home or doing a combination of office and work from home. Great resignation, we've heard about that for sure. Now there's a bit of an economic slowdown. We're not sure which way that's going to go, but people have been resigning in droves over the last year and a half, 2 years. And they're looking for a lot of different things, including better employee experiences. There's a tremendous amount of competition for talent because of remote work and because of hybrid work. Companies that you weren't competing with a couple of years ago are now poaching your top people because they're hiring remotely. Location has ceased to be a consideration in a lot of hiring, which means there's brain drain, people leaving your organization. And the reputation of your organization. Sites like Glassdoor are very important now. I want to go work for a company where things are better, where things are easy. And social media certainly plays into this as well. Employee experience is publicly available. I hate my job. It's not necessarily what you want somebody saying as they leave your company. If you want to build and maintain good reputations, you want the employee experience to be as good as it can be. So we said there has to be some economic consideration. So let's just tease out a little bit of that specific consequence of employee churn or attrition. It's immensely expensive. According to Employee Benefit News, it will cost about $20,000 to replace an employee making $60,000. And of course, it ramps up as the employee salary goes up, it costs more. There's more recruiting time, there's more interviews, et cetera, at a higher level, so forth and so on. So it's very expensive to hire people, to replace people. And we did a study quite a few years ago now on the war for talent, because there has been an IT shortage of talent for a long time. Back when this was first starting up, we did a study. It was called the War for Talent. And one of the things that we looked at was what happens when somebody leaves. The work falls on other people's shoulders. They become overworked and overburdened. They get stressed out. Next thing you know, they're on the exit ramp. You don't want that to happen. And so you want to retain the people you have, certainly the best people you have, and make sure that there's continuity in your organization, et cetera. So that is a huge financial consideration. And then there's the whole idea of having to ramp people up and provide training, and all of that is just tremendous costs. So what does this have to do with improvement? Well, progress iteratively with feedback. We should all be relatively familiar with that statement. Notwithstanding my brilliant diagram at the top, it took millions of hours to portray the idea of multiple loops. You can find that similar diagrams in books on DevOps. You can find them on, everywhere you look. At improvement with frequent feedback loops is something that we should all be exceedingly familiar with and understand. So that's all I'm going to say about it for now. We're going to come back to that idea as we go through the rest of this. So let's look at some of the reasons that things get messed up, especially in terms of IT. First of all, we don't define things correctly. We think they're IT projects, they're not their business project. We can go down that road. But historically, some of the reasons that initiatives and projects fail is because they don't have clear goals. They run into communication problems. They're not well planned, and there's lack of risk management. And risk management is in the top of mind for a lot of people in senior management these days. I guess I can say this. Currently working on some of this. I'm holding up too shiny to see, I think. This is the fundamentals of adopting the NIST, the NIST cybersecurity framework. I was one of the official reviewers on that book. It's published by TSO. And it talks about the concept of strategy risk and how risk needs to be embedded in the concept of strategy. Every strategy has a risk involved. When you're talking about governance, you cannot avoid the topic of risk. But if you carefully proceed, you can understand the risks you're taking and eliminate or mitigate as much as you can. And that's part of this approach by using employee experience and IT experience management as well, right? Elimination of risk or mitigation of risk. Scope creep. We've all been there, haven't we? Of course, we want the red widget to be blue. Communication problems, and there's two kinds: lack of communication or overwhelm. I have worked on projects where the project managers were so highly communicative that they confused people. And what happened there was, by over communication, they obscured the objectives and made people stop reading the material. 14-page email. If emails had pages, a 14-page email is not a good way to communicate. Lack of planning goes without saying. Lack of risk management, just do it, or we think it'll work. That's either way, not a good approach. Okay, so those are some gotchas if you're going to conceive of using an initiative to forge ahead with employee experience management. Just be aware that those are typical, traditional project failures that happen. Some guidance for success: specific measurable goals. And in this case, specific measurable improvements selected from employee experience feedback. Have a plan and stick to it as far as communication goes. Make sure that you're planning around the items indicated by the employee experience data, and make sure that you're mitigating the risk through data-driven approaches. Okay? What does he mean by all this, you say? Well, this is a scary bit I'm going to unleash upon you. We talked about the cost of employee churn. I'm going to talk about the unmeasured cost of interruption. 3 hours and 6 minutes per incident. Okay, let's think about that. Employees are losing 3 hours and 6 minutes per incident using their perception of what happens. They're impeded or restricted or disabled from completing the tasks they want to do for 3 hours and 6 minutes per incident. Well, that doesn't seem like very much. That seems like pretty fast response and a pretty fast time to restore, whatever. We'll be looking into that. And we already talked about false starts and failures in terms of projects. The unmeasured cost of interruption. I drew stats from several sources to look into this. I was very interested in exactly determining how expensive is it. So according to the Happy Signals Global IT benchmark, as I said, employees say that they're losing 3 hours, roughly 3 hours per incident. Okay. And traditionally, when we've talked about the cost of incidents, we've looked at it as the fully burdened cost per ticket completely for within the IT silo. What we're paying service desk people and their equipment and software licensing and all of that, the real estate costs, all of that stuff, the fully burdened cost. And it usually comes out to anywhere between $17 and $30 per ticket. Yeah, no. Get outside the silo and look at it, what it's actually doing. So now, using data from MetricNet, HDI, and Happy Signals, we're going to look at this. And I just caution you to think of lost time. It's not the same as downtime. Downtime happens at the machine level, right? That server was down for this period of time. People couldn't access the website. They couldn't conduct e-commerce, yada, yada, yada. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the user's perception of the time that they lost. So it includes things like, oh, I don't think this is working. Let me try it again. Oh, it isn't working. Let me Google it. Bob, do you know anything about how this happens or what I'm doing wrong here? Then what? And then sometimes 3 hours later, they get back to being able to work fully. So MetricNet says between 0.5 and 1.5 tickets per user per month on average. So let's say 1, right? That's right in the middle. It's 1 ticket per month per user. And then HDI says a little over half of tickets are incidents. The rest are service requests or other. So let's run those numbers. So if we have an organization with 5,000 users, 1 ticket a month, we've got 5,000 tickets times 54%, because that's incidents, 2,700 incidents per month. Notice we're restricting this to incidents. It can be other stuff too, but that's a different calculation. So now we have U.S. average salary across the board, every job for 2021, $51,480 or $24.75 an hour. And that comes from policyadvice.net, an HR site. And now 2,700 incidents times 3 hours apiece. That's 8,100 hours per month of lost time from the employee perspective, times 24.75. $200,475 a month, or $2,405,700 a year. Does that get your attention? I would think that would get just about any senior executive's attention pretty fast. Hey, we're spending $2.4 million a year on lost time for employees. That's how much we're losing. And those numbers are pretty solid. They're good sources. You can look them up and you can weep with the rest of us. So if you were able to just cut that by 10%, you'd be saving roughly $250,000 a year. Just 10%. If you can eliminate a substantial percentage of that cost, oh baby. So That's nice general information, Roy. What about the specific stuff? How can we do this? So it has to be specific, actionable, and measurable feedback that you get in order to be useful in driving continual improvement. That's pretty straightforward, I think. And so I'll just forge ahead. This is Happy Signals data. Full disclosure, I have worked very closely with Happy Signal for a number of years. Their tool basically lives under ServiceNow and provides feedback from employees over time. This particular graph goes from the first half of 2019 through the second half of 2021. That's the latest update to the benchmark. The benchmark will again be updated, obviously, in the second half of 2022. But here we go, H2 2021. And there it is, 3 hours and 6 minutes. But the other line indicates what they call the happiness score. So employees are saying, here's how happy I am with this, or how happy I'm not with this particular service or process or dealing with IT. There are 8 different areas that Happy Signals measures in terms of relations of employees with IT. And it's interesting to note there how you think it's pretty straightforward. Lost time goes up and happiness isn't so good, but happiness goes up right through the lost time line and continues upward in spite of the fact, if you look at the last 2 numbers on the right side of that, you can see that lost time went from 2 hours and 29 minutes in the first half of 2021 to 3 hours and 6 minutes in the second half. And you would think that that would be that would cause a downturn, but in fact, it did not. Happiness continued upward. So there's more to it than meets the eye. Let's put it that way. And correlation, as we know, is not causation, right? So that's a very interesting little segment there. So correlation, not causation. It's likely that a reduction in lost time will increase happiness, but as we have seen, it's not necessary. It's not a cause. It's extremely likely that listening to feedback and acting on it will cause an increase in happiness. So conversations between IT experience management leaders and employees have shown that the happiness score trends up simply because, and it's very interesting, employees feel that they're being listened to and that changes based on their feedback are actually going to happen. So the confidence and the responsiveness of IT plays very heavily into employees' ratings of how happy they are. Interesting, yes? Just asking them for their feedback is not enough. One of the things that turns people off is if they're giving feedback, and you're aware of this too, you might have a really good insight into how a particular company could have improved a particular set of transactions. You can offer that to them. Nothing happens. No changes are made. Well, how do you feel about that? Well, you feel like you've wasted your time. And an awful lot of employees feel like they've wasted their time talking to IT because nothing happens. It doesn't change. It goes on being the same. But if once they start to realize that changes are being made based on their feedback, their world starts to turn around, and they start to see that it is going to be a better world. So it's extremely likely that feedback will guide you in deciding when we're going to make improvements. Why? Because they're going to tell you. They're going to tell you what's wrong. And one of the organizations, and this is a company that's multinational, they have 46 installations. They're in 30 countries. And the folks who started running their IT experience management program discovered that when they asked people, what's the difference? Why are things getting better now? They said, because you're listening. We're telling you what's wrong, and you're making changes based on specifics that we're telling you. We told you, for example, that our file sharing system is awful. So guess what? They moved everybody to SharePoint. They changed the entire system. And that made a huge difference in employee perception. Okay. So again, leaning on the global IT benchmark, and I will show you the link to this report. If you haven't seen it, it's really interesting. And you saw some of the numbers. That one number where I showed you the happiness and lost time across. There were 1.7 million responses included in that. This is very interesting. In H1 2021, the happiness rating for the service portal, which was the lowest rated of any intersection with IT. Portals were rated the lowest of any intersection with IT. As you can see, it was minus 18 as compared to collaboration with IT was at plus 78. The hardware was good. Laptops and computers were good. Service portals, bad news. That changed in H2 2021. It's up to 0. It's still got a long way to go to catch up with some of the others. But as you can see, that particular point is improving. Why? Because people said it's awful. We don't like the portals. We want them to be better. We want it to be easier, or we want you to find a different way for you to deliver us information rather than have to chase it through going to a portal. Fascinating. Hey, I think so, but then I would. So how does feedback guide improvement? Well, the experience management data tells you specifically to put your effort. In that case, it was portals. If the rating had gone down on, say, laptops and computers, you might look at, well, maybe we need to find better ways of providing those, or we need to get a new provider. Maybe we need to change brands or change platforms, whatever it happens to be. Employee experience, specifically IT end user experience, guides improvement. Employees tell you what's broken, what they're having difficulty with, what the effects on their work are, and then you make changes based on that feedback, specifically on that feedback. So now you have targets that you can hit. So here is a pretty significant correlation, again, coming from the same report. And again, this one's based on almost 400,000 responses. Happiness goes down, lost time goes up, specifically in terms of reassignment. One of the things that the global benchmark has discovered is that every single reassignment of a ticket, and this is incidents again specifically, costs another hour of productivity from the employee. So if it's 3 hours overall, ticket gets reassigned, it's now 4. It's not a happy place to be. You can see how much of it changed based on the delay, based on that lost time. So where would you put your money there? Well, obviously, speeding up the processes and procedures that back the service desk and make it faster to respond and provide fixes and minimize the reassignment of tickets, get the categorizations right, the assignment groups right the first time. So you're not reassigning stuff, right? Make sense? And there it is, average happiness and lost time change for additional reassignment. So it's down 8 points in happiness and up an hour. So why is this any better than doing some, we've all surveyed users for years. And we come up with answers like 85% of end users say they're satisfied or very satisfied. Well, whoopee. Okay. With what? Specifically with what? We don't know. They're with IT services. This way we can drill down and we can say, they're least happy with the portal, or they're least happy with the laptop, or they hate collaborating with IT, etc. Each additional ticket reassignment means a drop in 8 points. That's very specific information. Now you know that you can direct your improvement efforts specifically at cutting down the reassignments and reducing the lost time for end users. Okay, makes sense? You got specific information. And that feedback is going to be repeated and repeated and repeated. If you keep looking at what employees are telling you, whether you're using happy signals or there's some other products out there, and we'll talk about those, or just doing a periodic surveys of your employees, asking the right questions, just not how satisfied are you, that's not specific enough. Where can we improve? They will tell you, and you can make the next round of improvements based on what they're telling you, right? So this is one way to do it, and this is ITXM, the ITXM framework. You basically baseline what your employee experience measurements are now. You share that with everybody. Just open it up, make it visible. Identify specific opportunities for improvement. You make targeted improvements like we were just talking about. You measure it and you repeat it, and it just goes on and on and on. Remember, this is not a project with an end date. This is the way that you're doing things now, so that your continuous improvement becomes part of this cycle. So, quick review. Why are we doing this? Because of the reasons that we discussed. We want to hang on to employees. We want to make their lives better. We want to increase their productivity in every way we can. And how are we going to do it? We're going to measure the experience data, share it with the entire organization, identify the opportunities we have for improvement based on that feedback, and then get more feedback and see if we hit it. Did we get the improvement? Did we see it in the next round? And then repeat the whole process again and again and again. So it's not, as they say, rocket surgery. This is relatively easy stuff. You just have to plan it and target it correctly and be willing to listen to what they tell you. So here's our takeaways again. Clear definition of employee experience. We got that, right? It's the whole ball of wax from the time they are become aware of you and are recruited to the time they leave. How an iterative feedback-driven approach to continual improvement capitalizes on opportunities, decreases risk, and increases chances of success. Well, yeah, because we're looking at those specific bits of feedback that you're getting from the people who are using your services and systems. How to measure the success of your efforts. There's a bunch of different ways. I showed you one, but the key is to make it consistent and provide those measurements across the board. Let everybody see what it is. You got to be honest about this stuff. And if it doesn't look good, okay, well, that's going to put pressure on you to find those opportunities for improvement and make sure that they happen. So here's some additional resources. The Global IT Benchmark that I spoke about and I shared the data from is at happysignals.com, Global IT Experience Benchmark. XLAs, experience level agreements, are very much coming into play in organizations now. SLAs have done their thing, not a lot of it good. I've never been a great proponent of SLAs, and I like XLAs better. XLA Collab is certainly one of the sources for that. BMC software also has some information on XLAs. QStack. What the heck is QStack if you're not familiar with it? It is it's a metric, essentially, and it measures a bunch of stuff. It measures quality, speed, technical knowledge, approachability, and communication. So it's QSTAC. And that came from some research work that was done by Ben Brennan, who's the author of Badass IT Support. He's got a terrific background in IT support himself. And he just kept asking, what is important to you in terms of your relationship with getting stuff done with IT. And those are the areas that kept coming up and coming up and coming up in terms of what employees were asking for: quality, speed, technical knowledge, approachability, and communication. And so you can learn more about that at qstack.com. Okay, here we are. We're at the questions point of view. And if you have questions, I'm happy to look at them. I did see that there was some information in chat, although I was not looking at chat. There are 6 things in chat. 6 things. Oh my goodness. And so we'll take a look at those.
Yeah, I see a couple things here, Roy, that if I can help facilitate. I just see that
Sure, yeah, please do.
Rusty put in the ITXM link, which is awesome, into chat. Then Mitchell had a question. According to Happy Signals, XLAs don't replace SLAs, ? I know that there's still a lot of dialogue going on in that space from different points of view. Do you maybe want to comment on your perspective on that? Would probably be a good place to start, Roy.
Yeah, you don't have to replace your SLAs. There's a reason for both if they're both being used properly, XLAs and SLAs. Most of the SLAs that I've seen have not been used properly. They're basically IT saying, here's what we're going to deliver. Have a nice day. They're not really agreements and don't have that much to do with service. Telling your IT customers or end users, hey, we're going to answer the phone in 20 seconds. Okay. Does that mean it's not going to break and I don't have to call? So be aware of both. If you find that there's value in the SLAs that you have, then great. You don't have to do away with them to put XLAs in place.
Yeah, thanks for that. And Mitchell says, totally agree, service level disagreements. Yeah, and that's the problem, right, with being inside out, right? And I think ITIL 4's done a nice job in the service level management practice of reframing SLAs, including experience as one of the dynamics. We used to have SLAs be very warranty focused only or non-functional requirement focused only, and talking about the fact that they really need to include utility and warranty and experience now as a part of having a true 360-degree view of what's going on. So opportunities, I think, from that perspective to take a look at where that's evolved. And I don't look at it as an either or thing. I think it's doing the right things for the right reasons and not being just IT focused will help a lot with that from my perspective. So yep, and I see your chat, Mitchell. Awesome. So I definitely want to leave some time for some additional questions. Make sure you capture Roy's contact information on his slide. Roy, I'm going to go ahead and take back over sharing just to get some announcements out real quick, and then we'll finish up the session with some more Q&A.
I'm happy to do that, sir.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and do that real quick. So just a couple of things. First of all, appreciate everyone for being here. I wanted to announce the fact that we're going to take a couple of months off this summer from this meeting. I've heard some feedback from some folks that are on vacation this week and couldn't be here and said, can't be here. And I know vacations typically take off a little bit more in July and August. So our next meeting will be at the end of September. I actually have a speaker tentatively lined up. I'm not officially ready to share that yet, but more to come there. Couple of additional pieces I want to capture for everyone. I want to put up the fact that registrations for Service Management World are now open. That's happening November 12th through 16th in Orlando. Just very recently found out who has been approved to be approved speakers for that conference. And Roy, I just talked to him earlier before the meeting. He's going to be there. I'm planning on being there and presenting. So excited for those opportunities. Check that out. All of our previous recordings for this meeting from today, I'll post it out here as soon as I get it uploaded, as well as our previous meetings are out on the YouTube channel link I have. A couple of other additional links here. The Treasure Valley Agile Community has monthly meetups. Our Project Management Institute meetups are listed there for those links. And then the Keep the Learning On channel, which Roy has been a part of. And there's several recordings out on that blog and YouTube channel that hasn't been posted. I think they quit doing those here a little bit ago. And I know, Roy, you're a little bit more focused on that Institute for Digital Transformation as one of the things that we'll add to this page moving forward. And so those links are out there as well. Anything you want to add to looking at the previous recordings for Keep the Learning On, Roy, or anything that would be worth the audience to know just as far as checking that out?
There's about 52 or 53 hours of recordings on KTLO.
Yeah.
So if you, KTLO Learn is the website, and Keep Learning On is the YouTube channel. There are open discussions there. We had 4 core people involved, and then a lot of other people joined us, including you, Jeff. And there's some very interesting discussion that happened. They're totally unrehearsed, just let's pick a topic and talk about it. So you might want to look at those.
Yeah, awesome. And those are clickable links. And yes, I will make sure all our presentations, I saw Dana's chat, get posted on our meetup. A couple other real quick things. Just I'm teaching an ITIL 4 foundation class in July, starting on the 18th. If folks are interested, I do have a few seats left. That's fully virtual, so easy to attend. ITSM Academy has some public classes coming up. There's a DevOps Foundation class in July, Essence of Experience, which fits right in with Roy's topic. The XLA class is September 9th. And then the very final chance to do ITIL 4 Managing Professional Transition before that completely expires at the end of September. It's been extended again. One final chance if you're interested, if you have the credits from V3 or have your ITIL expert, to bridge over and getting your Managing Professional Transition cert. One final thing I wanted to post, and this is for me talking with Roy and appreciating him taking the time to present to our group today. I'm asking all of our attendees to consider donating to Roy's chosen charity. I'll certainly be making a donation after this meeting. It's the Greenville County Animal Care Services. I have the link here in the presentation to get to that, and I'll also post that in chat. Roy, anything you want to share about this charity and why this charity is important to you for just a few seconds?
They do a fantastic job of taking care of the animals in Greenville and Spartanburg County, South Carolina, as well as facilitating rescues from all over the country to come and pick up dogs and make it as accessible as possible. It's very low cost, if not free. And we're very happy having gotten our last rescue pooch in a series of rescue pooches that we've had over the years. They do a terrific job. So if they can get a little bit of money from you, great.
All right, thanks, Roy. So that's out there. I posted the link in chat. And with that, I'll hand it back over to the group. Please feel free, if you have a question, to introduce yourself to Roy, and we'll see if we have any other questions related to your presentation. So we'll open up the floor for everyone here, and I'll actually go ahead and turn off my sharing so we can all see each other a little bit better.
Hey, Roy, this is Tim Farkas. Can I be heard?
We can hear you, Tim.
Awesome. Thanks,
Yeah, we
Jeff.
can.
Roy, a quick question. On the slide deck, you had the happiness and lost time with IT incidents, showing the progression
Yes.
over time of how happiness
Yes.
increased. Do you see that also, and I'm just putting it out there as not just incidents, but do you see that with requests? Do you have a way that you you tally that and see a similar trend?
I haven't seen data on specifically on requests. What I do know about request fulfillment is that, generally speaking, if it's timely, it's good. If the right stuff shows up on time, it's good. If you leave a new employee sitting, and I recently saw a case where somebody was sitting for 2 weeks with no equipment. No kidding. 2 weeks, a new hire sitting with no equipment and trying to figure out what they're supposed to be doing. Obviously, their experience is going to be absolutely horrible. So requests, I think, are very much wrapped around time and timeliness, whereas incidents, although there's a time factor for sure, it basically boils down to how often did it break, how rapid was it fixed, how much is it getting in the way of my work, et cetera. There's a little bit more wrapped around it. And then this data specifically focused on incidents. There is, by the way, a really good question in chat here. It says, employee experience seems focused on employee experience with IT. Well, that's what we're talking about. It's not. Employee experience is across the board. This is the part that I focused on for this specific audience because it has to do with continual improvement. So employee experience is a whole discipline across the board, and it has to do with everything employees do, not just IT services. Is IT employee experience in providing services for other employees addressed. Oh, this is not measuring IT employees' experiences with IT. This is about measuring the entire organization's experience with IT. So all employees, and let's make that clear, these are not IT folks. We've kind of discounted them, although what tends to happen is that their happiness goes up as well because they're having better relationships with their colleagues in different departments. But this was not about IT employees. It was about employees of all lines of business across the organization. Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up that question next, kind of trying to follow along in chat. So thanks for that, Dennis. That's great. And Mitchell comments too. He says that is why we often see confusion where employee experience should sit. Just understanding is it an IT thing? And obviously IT plays a big component. We have our parts we need to control, but overall, that's not really true. You're going to have all the other shared services, HR, I would suspect, the employee, workforce talent management aspects, all of that has to collaborate and work together.
Actually, where it really has to sit, excuse me, is at the C level.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to think about that through, it's strategic, design to say, is this an area that if we are trying to do continual improvement, and if that's going to help our operational effectiveness, right, to be able to serve our customers better. It's interesting. I was telling her I just taught digital IT strategy classes last week, and your two typical vectors of strategy are based on either customer market relevance or operational excellence. They have to be balanced, right? You can't do one without the other. And I think that fits right in with the theme at the beginning of your presentation, right? Whereas the employee side, page 2 of the book you were talking about, has to be there, right, in order to get the other side to work right.
Yeah, so absolutely. But just remember that I am sorry, a big proponent of breaking silos. If you're looking at it just from within an IT perspective, you're not seeing the picture. Just as to see, remember I went through the costs of incidents. If you're looking at it only from IT's perspective, you're looking at $25 a pop for tickets. And that's not the picture. Yeah. The picture is much bigger than that. So.
You bet. I thought that was an excellent demonstration of how to look at that from more of that outside in perspective. That was great. Terrific. Other questions for Roy? I'm sure a lot of you still have some things that are out there that you might have running through your head, or that you're thinking about reacting to the presentation.
And if you
I don't have as much of
something later on. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
I don't have as much of a question, but I want to say that I really like these presentations because I'm coming from a lower tier perspective. I'm just in the IT support side. I haven't been as much in the management side as I want to be. I was a tech lead at one point, but IT service management just kind of comes naturally to my thought processes, and stuff like experience. The focus on experience as a whole is so incredibly important, and I really love the shift in the industry towards that, this more modern progressive way of thinking of how to manage support and experience in organizations. And like IT is like definitely a huge part of that, because so many companies are so heavily integrated into IT. It's involved in everything. So yeah, the IT user experience is very much a big part of everything. But yeah, you have to keep the bigger picture in mind, and it has to be the higher levels that are thinking about it all the way down. But I also think that it's important for getting those perspectives all the way down to the lowest levels, not just to tell them how it should be, or to top down and force these types of ideas and thoughts, but to actually bring people in and make people on the lowest levels feel invested and get their voices heard, so that yeah, they can voice like, yeah, those this isn't good, why isn't this good, get to the root of these things, so we can address the sorry, losing my ability to articulate here. But yeah, so we can improve things on all levels and work together, and not just have things cordoned off and people just getting through the day. getting people invested in the experience, improving their experience directly, and making them feel like they can improve everyone's experience, gets everyone invested, and I think improves employee happiness and employee retention as a whole. Because people feel like they can make a difference in their organizations, and that improves everything in the world as a whole. So I love a presentation like yours that focuses on experience and talks about some of these things that aren't typically thought about by a lot of groups of people, and it really needs to be a bigger focus. And so thank you for your presentation.
You're very welcome. I greatly appreciate that. And it's good to hear that you're thinking about it.
You
And
bet.
it's important at your level too. That's when I started thinking about this stuff. When I was doing service desk and desktop support, and I've been leaning on it and trying to push the industry in this direction ever since. So it's here, and we're doing it now.
Absolutely. I know we're starting to lose folks. We're seeing a lot of thank yous in the comments, Roy. And again, I know we're at the top of the hour. So if everyone is needing to jump to their next meeting, appreciate that. If you can stick around for a few more minutes, I think Roy's, I don't want to speak for him. I think he's willing to answer maybe a few more questions. I see, Joanna, you've got a chat in.
Sure.
Do you want to maybe come off mute and talk to your comment a little bit more?
Sure. It was just something that I've done in the past when we're looking at the actual process of something. When you do that detailed level process map, you can you add in all the waste analysis, and you just add this in as a data point for a calculation so that you can show not only where things are breaking because you might have silos or too many handoffs or reassignments, but you can also show that, from a layout structure, this person is interrupted on average, 15 times before they can actually complete or things like that. And then that calculation, you just add a dollar value to it. And you explain, look, a person in this level of organization, this is their, standard base, blah, blah, blah. And it really helps define to your executive leaders what they're costing you with their silliness.
Yeah, and also you can add it into that if you have experienced data, if you're getting feedback from your people about which one of those breakpoints is bothering them the most, that's where you put your effort. That's the key with this, is that it can really help you focus on what's important to them. And as we saw in one of the ones that, that increase in lost time wasn't as important at this point as it was maybe a year ago, because people feel that things are improving overall, or they recognize the improvements being made. There's probably a whole bunch of data that sits underneath that. But you're absolutely right. You can map this stuff out. And then if you can have a view to that, you can visualize that and look at your experience data. You can look at where the two overlap and say, okay, well, this breakpoint is killing people. That's where we should start. Whereas this one, they seem not to bother about so much. It's just an added bit of calculation you can put in.
Yep,
thank you.
Absolutely. Pareto 101.
Yeah, and putting the knowledge layer on top of it and the presentation layer, right, to actually have the discussion and understand the impacts beyond just what the information and the data is showing you, I think is inherent in that too. Good, great comment and discussion there, Joanna. Appreciate it. Glad you're here. Others, still got a few more people here. Anything that anyone wants to contribute or bring into the discussion or ask a question around? All right, I see Cheryl's here, but Cheryl, if you're listening, I see your video's on, but I see a picture of your couch. I don't see you, so don't know if you're out there and want to come back over, or if your camera's focused the wrong way, or if you had to step away. But if there aren't any more questions, I'll go ahead and stop the recording. And again, appreciate everyone for being here, and we'll see you all again in our September meeting. Like I said, we'll take a couple of months off for the summer, and I will get this video posted out on YouTube and share the link through Meetup and through LinkedIn. So appreciate everyone for being here, and I'll officially call the meeting to a close.